You guys good? Yeah? Okay. I'd like to call this special meeting of Great Island Advisory Committee to order. It's Thursday, April 18th. It's 6:37 p.m. Thank you all for attending. Hi, RTM. Thank you all for attending. Thank you for coming back from your vacation, for spending part of your school break with us. I did do a little bit of research in these stables and found some really interesting drawings from the building. So I just want to make you aware that you can go and look at them down in Planning and Zoning. Are they available? Not yet. Well, they'll be available sometime.
They're in Public Works.
Oh, they're in Public Works, but they are available.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. They are drawings from 1915 for the White House, or for the greenhouse. That's the house when you first pull in, the stone house with the hey Jim, with the root cellar. So those drawings are from 1915, and then there's a really interesting. I think it's probably 5 feet by 4 feet. A drawing from 1931 that was updated in 1938. Really, really interesting. So you'll get to see the island as it was at that point. So suggest you take a peek if that's something.
Who do we ask for there?
We ask for Ed.
All right.
You might recognize him.
Yeah.
The guy sitting behind you.
Yeah, that guy.
Or Tony. And I think Ed has. We also found a drawing. I thought this was the stables. It was dusty, and I just grabbed it. But it's actually the old stables. So on the easel back there, if you want to take a look, that's the old stables before they burned down. But you also get a glimpse of what the main house looked like before the renovation in 1927. So that's kind of interesting. Next, we have an update, and Tony, are you doing it?
Yeah.
Update from Public Works.
Are we going up here or?
Yeah, I think the camera's better.
Okay. Tiptoe this way. Okay. Public Works update on maintenance at the Dolphin House. The demo work is complete from the water leak we had, and we did some additional drying. And construction is starting soon, and it will be built back effectively the same as what it was. The asbestos removal work is going to start Tuesday, May 7th. And just as a reminder, that's in the stables and in number 18, the Pink House. And Pink House should take 2 or 3 days, stables 3 or 4 days. Each finishes with an air quality test, so you're safe to be in there after that. And the landscaper that the town hired starts this upcoming Monday, the 22nd. We'll start with the spring cleanup. Grass is going to start growing soon, and we're excited to get all the sticks and leftover leaves, and the place is going to even look better than it does now. And that's all for me, unless there's any questions. Yes?
In the stables, for the asbestos work, is it affecting the renters upstairs?
No, it's all in the basement. They'll be creating a negative airspace, so even if someone was on the first level, it won't affect them. Anything else? That's all.
Okay. Next is the RFPs for the master plan. So here, Jim, that one of those piles is for you. So we received bids today at 4 o'clock. And we received bids from 5 firms within the time that was given. The deadline was at 4 o'clock. So one of the firms did not have their paperwork in on time. Their courier was stuck in traffic. Kate reached out to council, and we can't make an exception. So unfortunately, that entity is not going to be in the mix. They're disqualified, yes. Any questions on that?
Even if it's proven that it was already sort of in the courier, so there was nothing that could be changed, we can't enlist?
It has to have arrived here on time, otherwise we would be open to a lawsuit from the other firms if we chose the late arrival.
Yeah, it's disappointing, but it's also our policy on all bids, so we can't really change it for this one because it would impact other bid. I mean, we get bids every week, so. So it's unfortunate. So you have, let's just take a quick look through these. You have the Kate and Ed, or Kate, Lori, will you hand me that top sheet? Kate and Dan and Jeff kind of compiled this. So Kate put all the numbers together. So you can see that in phase 1 and phase 2, which is, I think, what we could realistically expect them to have a pretty sharp pencil on. Those numbers are pretty clear, and within a certain range, right? So we're looking at anything in between 900,000 and 2 million for phase 1 and 2. When you get to the 3 and 4, the numbers, there's a much wider range. On one of the firms, you can see that they did not include specific numbers for phase 3 or phase 4. They did a percentage. And I think that also disqualifies this firm. So we're down to looking at 4 firms. Any comments, thoughts?
Yeah, why would they be disqualified for not providing numbers in there, since one of our responses was that those numbers would be renegotiated anyway at the time of the completion of the master plan. Therefore, none of these numbers are going to be what the numbers are going to be at that time.
I think that the expectation was that there would be a number, not a percentage, put in. That's what everybody else did. And Kate, you want to help me out here?
Yeah. Technically, they'd be considered non-responsive because the requirement of the RFP was to provide a lump sum. They did not provide a lump sum, which makes them non-responsive. Okay. So I think you could disqualify them on that basis. And you are not obligated to consider all of them. You can choose as a committee to say, all right, here are the numbers we're looking at. We want to interview only these 2, these 3, these 4, based on the numbers too.
Understood.
You're not obligated to consider all of them at this point.
Well, we're most interested in what's in our best interest, not what's in their best interest.
Correct.
And our best interest is to have as many options as possible.
Right. Yes.
To choose from.
Yes.
So
But because
I hate
they-
eliminating people up front before even talking to them.
Yeah,
I have a question. I don't know if anyone can hear me. If it's
we can hear you,
appropriate.
Bruce. Yep.
You should identify yourself.
Bruce
Oh, there.
Ferguson,
Okay.
resident member of the GIAC. Was the percentage a range or was it a number? Because if it's a number, then you could potentially do the math to say what that number is. It's essentially a
Yeah.
number. But if the range, then maybe you could use the highest number. If we didn't want to exclude them, you could say, if it said 20 to 30%, you could use 30% as their number and then use that in the, I don't know, that's just a thought of mine, but
So-
just thought.
When we opened them, it did give a range. And so what you see there is the high end of the range that they gave. And it was a percentage of the construction costs. And they didn't provide an estimated construction cost that we could have used as a multiplier, because we did consider that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Kate, can I just ask, like on the RFP, right, they were required to just produce a breakdown of, like, what were they actually required to do?
They were required to provide a lump sum fee for each phase. As it's detailed on the sheet, it was phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 was broken into 3 different parts, and then phase 4.
And then I just have one more follow-up there is, because I had asked this question during the before we send out the RFP, feeling that we would probably get a wide array of answers because we don't know what the master plan is going to be yet. So we don't know what the construction costs are going to be because we don't know they don't know what we're going to say yes to or say no to as far as saying, yes, let's pursue this, let's not pursue that. So I can see why a bidder might go the route of saying it would be this kind of a percentage of construction costs, depending on, based on what you guys decide to do. So I can see how we are in the predicament that we're in right now, and I basically say I think it is a we, not a they necessarily, because, well, again, you guys do bids a lot more than me, so I may be off base, but I'm a little, I can understand why we might be here.
So I could say, two things. You can disqualify them for that basis that they were non-responsive. You do have the right to waive minor discrepancies or minor errors, so that you could consider them. But I would also, and Bruce, we have the benefit of looking at the numbers here that you don't have. On phase 1 and 2, they are twice as high as the next highest proposer. So
Yeah,
for that reason, you may
understood.
also want to say, we don't need to go further with them, but that is a choice of the committee.
Yeah, but I do think that, we're down to 5, and you can learn from all of these firms, right? We're only going to go with one firm.
Are we down to 4?
We're down to 5 right now if we include this one.
Well, you can waive the technicality of that.
So, what do you think? I mean, do you want to include them in the interview process and go through the research on them and the reference checks and all of that? I mean, I'm okay on it. It's additional work on our part, but, even if it's a marginal benefit, it's still helpful. As long as, Kate, we can do that, right? Right. So what does the committee think? Include them or not?
I guess, excuse me, we asked for them to provide these estimates based on what they conceived of as a comparable project. And obviously, we've left completely open-ended what our goal is, but I'll just note that the other 4 were able to come up with a number and give us something. And it's a little hard for me to know, and I'll defer to others if these percentages look good, but I don't know what those numbers mean, really.
Do we have to make this decision tonight, or can we go through and see, look at the totality of the proposal and come back and say?
No, we'll be scheduling interviews tomorrow morning, so if they're included, we'll schedule them. If not, we won't, so.
And my point before was to your point, which is the information you can gather from each of these firms, and the fewer that we have, the less we get. We'd actually probably be doing them a favor by not forcing them to put together a proposal and, a presentation and come in and do that presentation. And probably, as Kate said, numbers are very high. It's unlikely, I think, that we might select them based on those numbers. So is there enough that we're going to get out of them in this interview? I don't think so.
No? Okay. Lori?
I think given the combination of the pretty considerable cost compared to the others, and that they didn't complete the task, we probably should not include them.
Okay. Jim?
Yeah, it probably doesn't make sense to have them come in.
Okay. Mark Adeletta, are you live?
I am. It sounds like we can't determine the amount, given there's nothing to apply the factor to. And one of the fundamentals of the request was to provide a lump sum. And so on that basis, I hesitate to include.
Okay.
Well, can I ask a question just legally? We had all these RFPs in, we asked them to give one for each section and to break it down in terms of the sub-proposals. As a committee, could we decide that, well, we only want to move forward with phase one now, or we only want to move forward with phase two? Like, is it a little bit more multidimensional that way? Or are we already wed to the fact that whoever we hire, we're going to hire for all 6 phases?
One of the reasons it was broken down this way, to
Yeah.
answer your question, was so that we could terminate the contract at any time for whatever reason. We weren't getting along, they weren't fitting us well, or they weren't performing well. And so each of these is a separate stage before you can move on to the next stage.
Got it.
And so, yeah, in essence, we're only agreeing to get forward with stage one at this point.
Why do you ask that, Jim?
Well, just in terms of whether it would make sense to meet with them.
I mean, I would say my take on it is I haven't seen the responses yet, so I haven't been able to vet that the lower bids meet the criteria yet. But given that I hear that they're between 900 and 2 million, there's one order of magnitude there. That sounds like a lot, except that if you have a low ball there that has not met the criteria, then that quickly puts you in a situation where if we take these 2 higher ones and exclude them, I just feel like we've only got 5. And we whittled down to 6 from the RFQs that were all pretty impressive. And that if we only end up with 3 or how many? I don't know, I just think we should be careful.
Okay, we have 5, we're down to 5, okay, so that's our number now. And the one that we're discussing right now is a serious outlier as far as cost goes. So.
And there's just one that has this issue.
Exactly. The others all followed the instructions.
So we'd go to 4.
Correct.
So is it sort of a 2-step question, Monica, we need to ask? Like, one, are we going to accept it because it didn't sort of exactly fit the form that we asked for it? And then I think whether we accept it or not, we then need to make a decision. Do we want to invite them in to kind of have an interview based on the costs, right?
Right.
So you know, should we kind of
Separate
tackle
it?
this maybe in 2 steps?
Okay.
Well, and to the point a bit, we also have one that is at 2 million overall, and all the rest are 7.5 to 9.5 million for the full project. You got to question the low number. What do we get for that price where no other qualified designer thinks that they can do the job for 5 million less than the next guy? So the low ones is questionable as the high ones are.
Yeah, except the low one was our number 1 choice. And they're
That-
highly qualified.
Yeah.
So,
Well-
okay, well, let's decide on this. So I think, I personally, as much as I like the additional information, I think there are 2 problems here. The phase 1 and phase 2 is significantly higher than the rest. And the instructions were, I think, pretty clear, and this is the only firm that didn't follow them. So I'm personally okay on sticking with 4. Jeff, what would you like to
I agree with the 4. I'll just note that even without the construction costs, they're about double just on phase 1 and phase 2 of what the next highest all-in number is. And that's, who knows what these percentages would be applied to. So it seems to me, and at Dan's point, if it's a big concern now, why put them through the paces?
Right. I mean, all in, the lowest one is, they're 50% above the lowest one, all in, and this is just for phase 1 and 2. So, Dan?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with 4. That's, we were considering, maybe only having 4 or 5 people to begin with, so that's good enough.
Okay.
I think while I could maybe find a way to accept how they proposed it. When you just look at the percentages, like just for example, in phase 3, it says 20%. So that's like if we're spending $10 million, 20% of that is 2, and it's already off the charts. And I think we know what sort of even moderate sort of infrastructure improvements and building improvements cost. So it just seems like those percentages, even phase 3 being 40% of the costs, and comparing it, those percentages would, I think, just lead you to end up paying a significantly higher cost. If you just ran like $10 million in each
Right.
phase,
You just kept
it
going.
would be off the charts. So I'd say we stick with 4, given their price proposal.
Okay. Lori?
Yeah.
4? Okay. Mark Adeletta? We're looking for input on keeping it at 4 for going forward.
I'm supportive.
You support it? Okay. Bruce?
Yes, based on the discussion, I'm supportive.
Okay.
I'm supportive at 4.
Okay. So going forward on the 4, Dan and Jeff started working on a score sheet for us. And I want to talk about this because we have like 3 parts to this, right? We have the numbers, the hard numbers. That's pretty easy to score 1 to 4. But we also have the information in these books, which we haven't seen because we just received them. So that's another part. And then Dan and Jeff thought 10% for references and 40% for the interview. So these are just thoughts, right? They're these guys just, and thank you so much. Thank you again for all of your work on this. So let's open the discussion on as to how to do the score sheet going forward. I feel like the numbers should not maybe necessarily be weighted 50%. We should weight the numbers and I think these packages somehow. So do you think you can break it out a little bit more?
Well, again, without having reviewed the packages, it occurs to me that, if there's some information in these that is helpful and builds on what was submitted for the RFQ, that ought to be a scoring factor. So you're saying you're thinking that could come out of the cost proposal amount?
Yeah. And I'm not sure, we had, they gave us references with the RFQ, and we didn't have any weight for those.
Right, that's why we're putting it here.
Well, okay, so I guess the question is, when do we check the references? Do we do that after the interviews? And if so, is 10%? I think 10% is a little high myself. I think we have a pretty good idea of the projects they've done in the past. And, we had the opportunity to check those references already, so.
Do we have to decide on which one based on a specific score?
Let's say that again?
Do we have to decide on ultimately which one? I mean, what's the purpose of creating the scoring?
Just to help us, we did this when we were looking for, when we were interviewing. No, we did this when we were interviewing, actually, with the 45 people for Great Island. And we had two phases to it. So one, we looked at people's background, and then 2, we actually did the interviews. And they, you learn a lot from each one of them. So I'm just looking for a way to help the committee go through all of this material in an organized fashion and be able to, rank.
Well, the other thought was that the interview score itself could be 0, but it could be pass-fail. If you get 2 bad references, I'm sorry, the references. If you get 2 bad references for one of these guys, then you're going to question whether you want them on your project, right? So if all the references are positive, then they pass through that hoop, and you base it on the other things, the numbers and the things that come up in the interview.
I'm thinking, I started going to the local the parks that were given to us, right? They gave us 5 case studies, so I started visiting the ones that were close. And one of them, I honestly, I couldn't figure out why they even put it on as a case. It was not a shining example of what I think our committee would want. So there's a situation where you could fail that reference. I didn't talk to anybody, but I actually went to the park, and I would give it a failing grade. So I think the pass-fail is a good idea.
Well, perhaps the interviews could be 60, cost 40, and interviews pass-fail, just to
Interviews?
keep it, I'm sorry, the references pass-fail.
Right.
Still jet lag.
What do you think, Mark? What do you think, Bruce?
I'm kind of with Jim, that I think that based on, again, I'll refer back to I'm not an expert in picking the winners of public bids, so this is kind of new to me, but what I just heard Jim say, I'd really like to not have to necessarily take the numerical remuneration of our rankings and live with it as the winner. I think that if we can use the rankings of the numbers that come back in on our review process as guidance for discussion to bring us to good, healthy, constructive conversation about the proposals, and then make decisions from there. If there's closeness, like there was in the RFQ, I think that the conversation around the table is probably greater than the numeric rankings that are going to come back. So, I mean, 5% pass fail, yes, I think there are good metrics that can be applied in a spreadsheet that goes around, but I think ultimately the most valuable discussion will be at the table.
One thing you might consider if you think about references is to call some of the clients of these people and not ask about the firm that they chose, but about the process they used to decide which firm to pick. Right? There might have been something you learned from that, and they might actually tell you, well, actually having gone through all that, we might have done it differently, or here are the types of things we would have tested among the firms submitting bids that would have helped us get to a better decision. So I don't know that you could probably avoid reinventing the wheel here just by calling up these firms and say, give us any of your clients, we want to talk to them. But it's not about them, it's about the processes they use to select the final candidate.
And we already have those contacts
Yeah,
from their original RFQ.
There you go,
so-
just call them up and say, here's what we're thinking, and just test that with them. I bet you could come up with a pretty good refinement of the process just from those calls.
One thing in terms of Monica's idea about scoring, I just kind of sat through a very, very, very long process on teaching us groups of people how to interview and select like senior level candidates. And one of the things that is always recommended is for the group of people to sort of agree on the type of questions we want to be able to each individually answer to kind of foster the communications, right, and the decision making. So maybe if we could, as a group over the next week or so, come up with like the 10 or 12 answers that we all want to be able to answer about their proposal, the staff, their experience, and so forth.
The
And we'll-
answers or the
Sorry, the
questions?
questions. The questions we
Okay.
want to like be able to answer and then have dialogue on, that might be valuable, I think, in terms of.
Yeah, I think, I think consistent questions from all of us, and the same questions for every firm, I think are good. So, okay, so we're gonna need a little bit of help on that, and I'm not leaning on these two for the rest of.
No, I think everybody, the
Yeah.
entire committee should submit their questions to you that they want to ask during the interview process. And then you can weed through them and look for the duplicates and send those out to everybody. That might, result in further questions. that
Because
people think about.
then we're comparing like a certain attribute of all of them against each other. You know, in terms of how do we feel about like the lead project manager? How do we feel about their depth of experience within the senior leadership team that they're gonna have on this? I think those would be, you
Yeah,
know,
I
if
think
we could
that-
settle on maybe 15 or 20 of those that we wanted to make sure we could answer at the end of each interview.
That we want them to answer, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And look, it doesn't necessarily need to be us asking that question. It's us being able to walk away from the interview and understand how we feel about that particular item.
Okay. I think we do need to go through these briefly so that we know what's already covered in there, so we're not asking a question that's already been covered, right? So as far as scheduling goes, we have, right now, today is Thursday, and I've kind of given us next week to take a look at these. And then we have interviews on May 1st and 2nd, and I might try to bump that mark to make it the 30th and the 1st and 2nd instead of May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So we need to have those questions pretty much by the end of next week. Okay? And that's what we did. These firms all submitted questions. They submitted 93 questions. And I want to thank Dan and Jeff and Kate and Ed for going through them. We put them all in a kind of a spreadsheet and organized them by category, and then gave them to everybody. So it would be kind of like this, where you'll send me all the questions and I'll organize them and then send them back out and take out all of the redundant ones. But I'll give you enough time so that you have a chance to go through this first. Okay? And maybe Dan and Jeff, you'll still help me. Okay? Okay.
Monica, can we talk about the scoring assignment for the cost proposal? Is that simply on the monetary, or is it really everything that's included in these books and how we feel
Yeah.
about the
I think it,
context and
yeah,
everything?
I think it, I mean, you can score like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
Right? If we're just looking at phase 1 and phase 2. So I think that there definitely has to be some weighting for the material that they
Okay.
gave us.
Just wanted to be sure.
I'm just not sure how to weight that. You guys have any thoughts?
Well, there will be another component to it, which is the hourly rates that they provided to us. So I made the comment to someone that maybe some companies' hourly rates range from $100 to $150 an hour, and others are $200 to $300 an hour. That would make a difference if we ever got into that scenario. I'm hoping we don't, because we have lump sum proposals, and the lump sums should produce the product we're looking for at that price. So as Monica said, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 is easy. But maybe, I was thinking the cost proposal score would actually be the entire,
But the meat of
Book-
this,
the
and
book,
then
not
would we
just the
also
price,
consider the
right.
original books as well?
no.
No?
No, because we already did that. We should consider that in our decision-making,
Okay. But not in
Um,
this scoring?
but not in this scoring. But when, to your point, this shouldn't be a mechanical process where we put numbers in,
Right.
add them up and say, okay, they win, and that process of talking through it was very important for
Right.
the RFQ, and should be here as well.
I guess I'm going back to this, the 50%, and just figuring out, like, how do we, we give these dollar amounts a certain weight.
Well, but that's the point, though, is the dollars are very important to us. One is a town, because we're spending taxpayers' money, and so it does carry a lot of weight what the price is for the project. And so that's why there's so much weight on it. I mean, even if it is, this guy gets 50, and that guy gets 40, and that guy gets 30, and that guy gets 20, whatever it is, it needs to be considered.
What do you think, Jim?
I mean, at this point, I don't know that we need to be as prescriptive whether the price, the dollar amounts are like 30% or 50%.
Okay.
I kind of feel like we should.
No, we don't need to be.
Yeah, I feel like we should, I feel like we're ultimately going to settle on people that we really think are going to be able to work with this town to develop what we think is we're looking for, and then sort of look at you know,
Okay.
look at kind of how those prices work out. And I guess at the end, do we still have the ability to negotiate even with right, with whoever we select? Kate?
She says yes.
And Monica likes negotiating. Very successful at it.
Okay, all right, so we'll go forward with that. You'll get questions to me by the end of next week. I'll let you know on the interview dates, but at this point, it is May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And we will, I'm going to schedule a meeting for us for May 9th here at 6 o'clock. And at that point, we'll discuss what we decided from the interviews and from, looking through this material. And then that's a Thursday.
Will that be a private session or a closed session?
Is that an executive, Kate?
I think you can.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think we did it before. Yes, that would be fair to the vendors. So yes, it'll be executive. And then we have a couple of days, and then we will meet on the 15th. And so what we will do tonight is I'll ask for a motion to approve a resolution to request a certain amount. Do I ask for the high, 2 million? Okay. So I'll ask for a motion for an appropriation for X amount, and then to go before the Board of Selectmen, and it'll go before the Board of Finance. And then when we figure out which firm we want on the 15th, we will then let the RTM rules know on the 20th, and then they will have a hard number, a real number that the firm we decided on, and then that will go before the RTM on June 3rd.
So when will we go in front of the Board of Selectmen?
I think May 6th.
So that-
Appropriation?
No, yeah. Yeah, May 6th. You want it on Monday? Oh, no, wait, hold on. I need my calendar.
These amounts would not be part of the $103 million authorization?
No.
To go for a new one?
No. Yeah, no, Kate, I have it on May 6th.
Okay.
And I think Board of Finance is on May 8th, maybe? Does that sound right, Jim?
14th.
May 14th, yeah.
Okay, I think that works, yeah.
Yeah, so Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance won't know the hard number. We'll approve up to the 2 million. And then when we decide on the 15th, we'll give the solid number, the approved number, to rules for the 20th.
But in terms of the hard number, I mean, I haven't fully read through the proposals, but there are hourly fees in here as well, right?
We're only asking for the phase 1 and 2, right, Kate?
And again, I haven't gone through all these, but are all these phase numbers, these are considered hard caps?
Yes.
Exclusive of any sort of external consultants that they would need to bring in, or hourly fees?
No, including their external consultants.
Okay. So hours and everything, travel expenses, that's all like a hard cap?
It's a hard number, it's a lump sum.
So the hourly would come into play if we asked them to do something extra, as we're kind of marching through the process, and I'm making this up time, but say they said this includes 2 public information sessions, town hall, hundreds of people pile in, and after the 2, we say, wow, it was standing room only, people couldn't come, we really need to schedule a 3rd, and then we would have to pay them for that because it wasn't included. That's when the hourly rate would kick in.
Yeah, and that's something
Something like
that's something we all got to look for when we're going through these proposals, is some of these people may have qualified their proposals based on this many meetings we're going to attend, this many site visits we're going to have, or whatever their qualifications are. And so we need to make sure we know what those are.
Okay. So, any other questions on this? Any other thoughts? Bruce, Mark, any other thoughts? No?
On the overall? Because, yeah, I'm going to look into the interview, how to score the interview itself, and whether we break it down into components or keep it as a single number. But things to consider, I'd written down a few. The cultural fit, do they feel good with us? Or responses to our questions that we ask, how well did they respond? Their enthusiasm, how did they address our priorities, governance or something like that? And did they prepare any specific project ideas that they brought with them to the interview, which means that they started work on the project ahead of actually being selected, which would indicate, a positive trend. So just things like that, I'll include those on the sheet.
Great,
All right.
great, good thinking. Okay, so you'll work on that, and I will, for you, Bruce and Mark, we'll get these packages delivered to you, and I'll drop them off to the other two people that aren't here, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so may I have a motion to request a special appropriation in the amount of, Kate, would it be best to just go with the high number exactly, or go with 2 million?
Well, the 2 million gives you a little cushion on those two phases if you choose to add anything. It was just easier to round.
Okay,
But you could go with the exact high number, and I think you'd be pretty safe.
okay.
Or is it like gas prices where you just want to be under 2, 1.9 is a lot less than 2.
$1,995,000.
All of these appropriations for large building projects always have a little bit of contingency in them.
Okay, so
I think
it's-
part of it's a number, but Monica, how would you actually frame what the dollars are used for? Are they only for the payment of services related to like a consultant, or are they gonna, is the appropriation gonna be more broadly for, kind of like the build out and planning of Great Island? So
Phase 1 and Phase 2. for
Yeah.
consultants.
Yeah, this is phase 1 and phase 2.
I know, but are we gonna say like what phase 1 is in the appropriation, or? I'm just trying to think what.
The RFP states what phase 1 and phase 2 are. So it's the vision plan, the master plan, and the concept design.
Okay, so we're asked for 2 million to support things identified in the RFP under phase 1.
And
And phase
And
2.
2.
Oh, sorry, and phase 2. But we'll reference sort of like that RFP in terms of what we're asking for.
Right. Okay, all right, so stick with this resolution, this motion?
And stick with the 2.
Let's stick with it too, okay. May I have a motion to request a special appropriation in the amount of $2 million for the funding of Great Island Master Plan?
So move.
Dan moves. May I have a second? Lori seconds.
Discussion?
Discussion.
Are we going to say to be used for phase 1 and 2 of the?
Right, to be used for phase 1 and 2. Kate's going to write this all up, right? Okay. Lori seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Mark? Okay. Unanimous. Okay, thank you. All right. So the interview process, it'll be 2 consultants per evening, an hour and a half. It'll be in the Mather Center, in the cafe. And I think you thought maybe, or maybe it was Ed, somebody, a 20-minute presentation with the remaining time for Q&A?
I think you told each of the firms a specific number for the
Yeah.
presentation time, which I think
Which
was
was
20 minutes.
20 minutes. So we'll have a little, leeway because people have to get in and out of the room. But does that work for everybody? Because we can change that.
Works for
Yes?
me.
So
Sounds
it's May
good.
1st, 2nd, 3rd.
Monica, was that 90 minutes for
Yes,
each?
yes.
Just
90, yeah.
Thank you.
90 minutes, but, it won't be exactly,
take.
yeah, it won't be exactly
And what's
90.
the date on those? That's-
Right now, it's May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. We have 4. So I had 2 per day. So let me get back to you on the specifics of those, how we're going to do that, okay? I think we have 1 firm, Mark, that is only available on the Friday, so I know. So let me get back to you on that. Okay, that's it for that. Next item is 23A. Ed Gentile, Director of Public Works, is going to give us a rundown on that.
Could you give me a bit more?
Sorry about that.
No, I was talking to Tony. Okay. So we did put it out to bid, and we had the bid opening a week or so ago, and we had no bidders come back, unfortunately. So what we did the next day is we called the contractors. We called about 6 of them that we had sent it to. And some of them actually had called and had questions. So I was encouraged throughout the process that we were going to get something. Not getting something, I was very discouraged, if you will, and very disappointed. So some of the feedback from the contractors was, one of the main ones was the time constraints. We gave them a very tight window. I thought it was reasonable, but I gave them a tight window to do this work. 1, to open up the roadway, and 2, to finish the job. Some of them, because of their workload and schedule, couldn't fit that schedule, which meant they weren't going to bid the job. The other one was a couple of them, contract availability. They had a couple bids on their table, some of them of more extensive work. So they went after that work. Some of the feedback we got from those folks after they heard they weren't selected was, now we're interested in your job. So, and finally, the last one, which was a little surprising, was the wall design build item. Some of them saw that as a risk to them, liability-wise. So we're going to have to address that. So to address these items, I'm going to open up the schedule. With your approval, I'd like to give them an extended period of time to get this road built. As a matter of fact, I want to almost give them until Thanksgiving. So by the time I get this back out to bid and bids back, we're talking maybe the end of May, and then working through the summertime and fall, depending on when the contractor is available. The other piece is, we're going to open up this bid to a lot more folks throughout the state. We're going to go onto the state portal and see if we get some feedback. I thought we had a good pool down in this area, but I don't want to have no bids again. So we're going to open this up, hopefully to some companies that actually can handle it upstate. And finally, the wall design. I've contacted a couple structural engineers. I'm going to get the wall designed now and put that in as part of the package to eliminate that risk to them and take that on as part of the local PE, structural PE license. So that's where I am right now, and they're going to try to get this thing back out to bid, hopefully within the next 2 or 3 weeks. The design of the wall is going to take a little bit of time, but I'll see if I can push them to get it done quicker.
Is Readiness and Me helping on the wall?
No,
No.
that's why it wasn't part of the package.
Okay, so this is the retaining wall, just
Correct.
for people? Okay. So what do you think is the problem with the wall?
Structurally, the contractor didn't want to take the risk themselves or hire a PE themselves to do it. It's time. It's a little bit different than most jobs are done. A lot of these contractors want to go after the easier jobs, the bigger jobs, and that's the kind of feeling I got with this.
Did we dictate to them what the wall was going to look like?
I did.
I mean,
did.
if you had 5 different bidders design building it, would we have gotten the same looking wall from all 5?
We would have gotten the same look from the outside. It could have been built differently behind the scenes, if you will. A gravity wall versus a poured concrete with a face on it. You're still going to get the final look at the end when it's done of them replicating what's on site right now. That was the intent.
Ed, was there anything related to the operations? We're trying to kind of have this still be open to residents on the weekend. And obviously, I think we need the bid package, so part of it needs to remain open, right, for the residents, for the couple people that live on the island. Is any of that, was that a problem? Is there anything we need to think about operationally?
That was one of the questions from a company that I don't believe could have handled the job, but they asked is, can we make the driver a little bit smaller than what you're asking for? I asked for 12 feet. They wanted to make it 10. And I said I'd be flexible depending on their schedule. But they didn't, again.
But how much did any of the bidders mention the fact that they didn't like sharing that space with people walking in and out?
No, I mean, a lot of these contractors have done work on open roads while they're digging, so alternating traffic.
Nobody complained about that?
No.
I think that was your question.
So that's my update. I'm going to get that back out on the road as soon as I can.
So Ed, you're gonna go out in the next, like, let's say 3 weeks. You'll put this back out.
Mhm.
And when are you going to put a start date on it or a finish
I
date?
think I'm going to put a finish date on it.
Okay. What's the
And-
finish date?
It's going to be probably somewhere at the end of November.
Okay, so,
As soon as the plant's closed, I don't want to be doing any work where I can't pave. I really don't want to be mixing concrete.
is this something where they want more than 2 months to work on, and they might be starting in, I don't know, say August?
They maybe can do it in 3 months and they'll start in September.
Okay,
You know, it really depends on when the job ends and when they can man it. And one of the companies said, listen, we're booked until mid-August. If you don't give us the window towards the end of the year, we won't bid the job anyway. We won't have the manpower until September. That was one of the comments we got back. So I need to open it up to the full construction period for the year.
right. What I'm trying to get at is it a 2-month job, and it just depends on when they start, or do they want 3 months to do this job?
They didn't lean towards a time frame.
Okay.
It's the time frame I gave them to finish a portion of it so that we had access to the road.
Right.
That was the tight constraint for a couple of them.
So you're just gonna tell them you need it done by November, whether they wanna do it in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, you're not gonna necessarily put a constraint on that?
No, and I think that's going to eliminate our bidders again.
And you think it's a 2-month project, 2.5-month project?
I think it's probably, overall, include
Yeah.
landscaping, all of that,
Yeah.
that's probably closer to 3.
Okay.
But if I don't put plants in until the following spring, that's not going to kill, it'll open up the roadway to two-way traffic, which is the most important piece for us right now.
And you're gonna keep the phasing, they do one half, and then they do the other half?
I think
not
that's the
changing?
only way to have access to the island is to do that.
Okay.
And I think they all realize that too. I mentioned in the bid, we need to keep it open for access for the people that live on the island.
And did you, as part of that, did you have them like work on the sidewalks first and then, or did you not differentiate between how they had to stage it?
I didn't. Right now, because the road is so close to one side of the property, they're going to work on the other side first and leave that road alone. Leave it accessible, you can drive on it. They'll start digging the other side out, build half of that road, build that roadway, and then come back, demo the other half, put the sidewalk in, and the remaining portion. That's what I see.
Because the side that's farthest away is where all the structural walls and everything need to be built, right?
That's correct.
So that's the,
And they have to be in as part of the first phase of the job.
I have a question or thought, just, it was Bruce online here. With the no bids and some of the reasoning that Ed's just mentioned, and then the time delay that this rebidding and extension of the window to perform the work, it kind of puts us further behind the 8 ball, because then once we get that road open, the next thing we were going to have to do was figure out where people were going to park when we were going to allow access. So I think it kind of puts us in the spot where we really probably need to get our heads together, start talking about whether we should be maybe putting that into this bid, especially since you said that this was such a small thing, that might have, that they were looking for a bigger project. I don't think we're looking to do anything huge in that department as far as parking right now, but I think that the elephant is in the room, that we are going to have a place for the residents to park at some point other than Pear Tree Point. That's the next item on the agenda, I know, but so I just don't know. We should probably just have further discussions, whether it's tonight or at a future meeting, as far as whether this delay is a good crossroads, no pun intended, for us to consider maybe joining the project with a parking with some parking.
I would say, Bruce, to that we're hiring a consultant, and we're hoping to have them up and running, June 5th. So I think, let them help us make that decision as to where we want to look at parking. We're, I don't think there's a reason to jump the gun on that. I think waiting for.
No, I totally appreciate that. I even would say, even if it was temporary parking with gravel and not permanent, and maybe it goes away and gets moved after the master planners get to opine on this, but based on just kind of where there is to park today, there's not a lot of places, and we probably need something sooner than later is my thought.
Well, the contractor's not going to be on board anyway before June 1st, when we hope to have the designer on board with us. So even if it's in the first week or first month of the designer's activities, we can still get their input before we start building out there.
So, Bruce, I like the thought process, but slowing me down now to get a contractor on board for us, I don't think it's the proper approach. I also think any work done on that island is going to require us to go back to the regulatory bodies, EPC and planning and zoning, before we do anything on that island regarding parking or anything like that. So it's going to be a process that's going to take you further into the year. To be quite honest with you, these two things should be separate and aside. I think we talked about that originally.
I think that's fine. I just think we need to start thinking about it. Because I think if the road, if we had bids and they had broken ground last week, I think we might be talking about, okay, well, the road's going to be done. We're going to move beyond early access. Where are people going to park? So it doesn't have to be coupled, but I think we owe it to ourselves and the residents to figure out where they might be able to park at some point. So anyway, that's enough said.
Well, Bruce, let me add. I think you're absolutely correct, but I think that what the no bids have done is given you a little bit more time, and then you could put some thoughtful ideas together and with the new consultant and come up with some really good plans.
Okay. Any other questions for Ed? Mark Adeletta, any questions? Okay, thanks, Ed.
No question.
So Ed, just so we're sure on this, so you're going to put something together in 2 or 3 weeks and put it out and give them how long to respond? 4 weeks?
Probably 3 or 4 weeks.
3 or 4 weeks, and an open-end start time, but you're looking for them to finish by?
The end of the year.
End of the year. Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, Ed, thanks. I know you have your entire day job, and then you have your Great Island job, so I know this is on top of it, so I
Yes,
think we all appreciate it.
Thank you.
yes. Thanks, Ed. Okay. Next is to discuss early action, or early access and safety. And we received a letter from a resident, but we've had various people ask us to talk to us about safety on the road and pedestrian safety. So John and actually Dan and I were at the police commission meeting earlier today, and one of the things they were looking at was the consideration of turning Pear Tree Point Road into a one-way. So it would be a one-way from the Rings End stop sign going towards Pear Tree and continuing out to Long Neck, and then Long Neck would be two-way. So this was just a very beginning discussion on this, although I think they might have looked at this in the past. And my takeaway was that the commission mentioned that speeding actually increases when there's a one-way, and that more accidents happen. They suggested a few other immediate things that we could do. So one is we're going to ask Public Works to put up the right turn only over at Pear Tree as soon as they can. And we're going to maybe look at making that sign a little bit bigger and brighter, and
It gets ignored.
yes, it gets ignored. The other thing is the signs that say walk right, bike left, or excuse me if I have it reversed. Those are small, they're a little dirty right now from the season. So we're gonna look to increase the size of those. I don't know if we can drop them a little bit so that they're a little bit more visible, so that people understand, and we're going to get away with the right and left and just say walk against the traffic.
The one trick, I know that's the law, the one trick about that is there's one section of the road that kind of is in front of number 98, that if you're walking left and the traffic's coming at you, it's a blind curve. So if you have a car kind of whipping around and you're here, there's no shoulder. And I know personally, I always cross back over to the outside then because I don't feel comfortable. And certainly if I was walking with my grandchildren in the stroller, I wouldn't. Hugging that curve with the risk of a car whipping around. So it's really tricky.
I know, exactly.
It's that one spot.
There's a big retaining wall there.
Yes, it's a
Tall,
very,
you can't
yes,
see.
yeah.
Yeah. I mentioned that to the police commission because if you have people coincidentally walking in the right direction, right, and you have somebody going to the beach and somebody leaving the beach there, and you have 3 people, on each side, and then we have a little bit of a drainage issue there, so we often have standing water, so people go into the road. It's definitely a risk.
I mean, the one-ways definitely come up from time to time, and we were talking about, the whole pear tree redo and everything a few years ago. That definitely came up and never really got any traction, but it does get talked about from time
Well,
to time.
the plan was that they were going to reach out, the next step would be to reach out to the homeowners in that area that will be impacted, right? So everybody on Pear Tree will no longer be able to take a right out of their driveway.
Right.
And the concern there is that then you're pushing all that traffic, that vehicular traffic, you're pushing that up onto Long Neck.
Yep.
So,
But Monica, I think in theory, like over the summer, since we have the right turn only lane, the only traffic you're really pushing that way that's incremental are the individual homeowners,
Right.
right? So it's not, I mean, the quantum of traffic is not that
Right.
much, it's just
And any
a little
service
bit longer loop.
providers. But you're right.
yeah, they mentioned, Amazon and other drivers, so, I think my takeaway was that this isn't gonna happen this summer, even if it is a viable idea. It's gonna take a little while to research it, so we need to address the situation that we have now. I think, I think, Laura, your point, it's just realistic that right there, it's really difficult to do the right thing and walk against traffic because it's a blind curve.
It's blind. What about speed bumps? Aren't there even temporary speed bumps that can be put down? That could really slow traffic down there at least?
I think it's, I think the police commission had the right idea in that this isn't really a vehicle problem, right? This is residents walking in the road problem. And the real problem there is the road is really narrow. So I think encouraging people to walk single file is probably the most pragmatic approach. And
One of them said that in 95% of the cases that they've seen, the fault of the accident is with the pedestrian, not with the driver. And so it's really incumbent on pedestrians to pay very close attention to what they're doing. So, not to absolve all drivers, they need to slow down, but the reality is you need to be very careful if you're walking in the street.
yeah. I think, when you're down there, and we've all been down there because we've been visiting Great Island, right? You realize that a lot of people walk 2 or 3 or 4 abreast. And that's just dangerous. You really have to walk single file in that area. There's
Kevin described it as Wizard of Oz 4 in a row with a little dog right, walking down the yellow brick road. That has to stop, so.
yeah.
But also, I think it's, if you look at how many houses there are between the fork in the road of Long Neck and Pear Tree and the beach, including Crane Road, there's just not that many. So I'd say that the vast majority of cars that are coming north or whatever it is, away from Pear Tree Point at that time are people that are turning left out of the beach. So I think, maybe the seasonality of the no left turn could potentially go away and keep it right turn. And I think it also just becomes more of an enforcement issue of, I go to the boat club all the time, I'm behind a car. More times than not, the car turns left when there's a no left turn sign there. So I think if you were to paint in the road, kind of like the dotted lines, leading you to, like giving a driver more encouragement to turn right and do what we're actually trying to lead them to do could be a very good first step. Because if we do reduce the number of cars that are coming at people that are walking there in that narrow area, so that there really is effectively one-way traffic without inconveniencing the people that live on Pear Tree and Crane from being prohibited from turning right, then we have maybe solved the problem with a little bit more of encouragement and enforcement.
Yeah. Monica, to your point about right turn only, there were a few places, and I know like kind of coming on Route 1 where it's right turn only, and maybe there's an Ed question, they have actually put a little bit of a curb in, so it actually turns to the right, so you really are bumping up against the curb if you try to make a left, so it sort of pushes you to the right. I think we have that kind of coming out in front of 1020 when you enter from the seafood market, it pushes you, so maybe that's something we could.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good problem to have in a way, but it's not just the traffic on Pear Tree. It's the people that are going to Great Island that are parking at Pear Tree. So, we have added volume from that. And like I said, it's a good thing, but, so we will increase the signs and ask the police they've been doing a terrific job of, driving through Great Island and keeping an eye on things. And we ask them to continue that and maybe to increase their presence a little bit on Pear Tree Point Road, Pear Tree Point Road, and encourage residents to walk on the sides of the roads. Other than that, I think that's pretty much the extent of what we can do right now. Right?
I agree.
Okay. The question was Pear Tree beach parking and a beach pass. So I think that Pear Tree needs a beach pass Memorial Day.
Starting Memorial Day, yep.
So I don't see that changing. If you want to park at Pear Tree and walk to Great Island, you need a beach pass. You can get one from Town Hall, $53 for the season.
Free for me.
It's free for you?
And me.
Because you're good looking? How do you get a free pass?
Senior.
Age related.
Age related, okay, good, I'm going to try that.
You can be 40 and be a senior.
Okay, so, and as far as the signage goes, we'll do the sign as soon as possible. And Tony, will you look into making, they did a great job on the signs around town, and they did a great job on the island, so maybe look into something like that.
Yeah.
And then also, let's look at, because this is going to be longer than we thought, let's look at another sign at Pear Tree that gives the rules and regulations
Great.
with the QR.
You coordinate that with Sandy, please, or Jim?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Put that without asking, yeah.
Back to parking. We do allow non-season pass holders to pay a daily fee and come into the beach. Is it correct that if someone were to come in and say, oh, I'm just parking here to go to Great Island, where we don't have any established, is it open to residents or non-residents restriction, that we will still require that?
In my opinion, if you want to park at Pear Tree for any reason at all, you need a beach pass.
Okay, I just want to make sure we.
Well, I think state law says you kind of have to offer it to everyone, right? They just can either pay $53 for the day.
Yes, but
or
what
be
I'm
a
saying,
resident
say
by
somebody
then.
pulls in and says, well, I'm parking here, but I'm not going to Pear Tree. See, because our rules, the parks rules specifically say that you pay to park at Pear Tree, kind of the obligation to use the Pear Tree Park. So I just want it to be clear that if someone were to come in and say, oh, well, I'm not going to Pear Tree Park, I want to park here to go to Great Island, that they still need to pay the daily parking fee. I just want to make sure that we've publicly stated and clarified that.
That would be my point of view.
Okay. Okay. And then we would account, once the gate guards are up and running, we need to make sure that,
Well, anybody who comes in who does not have a sticker has to pay $53.
right, okay, but I just want to make sure, 'cause I can just envision somebody saying, well, I'm not coming here to use the park, I'm coming here
No,
to,
that's a great clarifying
Park.
point, but I'd say
Yeah.
it's pretty simple.
It's for parking, not for beach access. Because beach access is free, anyone can walk
right,
in.
exactly, but again, I can
Good point.
hear it coming.
Yep, it's for beach parking.
Yep.
Actually, I think what we're saying is just parking.
It's just for
Whether you're
parking.
going to the beach or the.
Yep, it's just for parking.
Right, okay. And that's till October 30?
At Pear Tree, just till Labor Day.
Till Labor Day?
Labor Day. It's
Okay.
more extended at Weed.
Okay,
Weed, it's already started. You need a sticker already,
okay.
starting this
Yeah.
past week.
Would it ever make sense to think about extending that if the traffic became too much?
We could, and we've certainly had requests. Historical thinking has been that the season is longer at Weed because there's, the racket sports and the playground, and there's a lot more activities, where Pear Tree, it's just the beach, there's really kind of nothing else happening. But we absolutely could look at that. We just found we just didn't get enough volume at Pear Tree. Once Labor Day shuts down, there's just not enough people coming in every day that it was really worth spending the money for the daily
Yeah, makes
person to
sense.
be there. It was kind of a financial decision. I know you like those.
I do.
Okay, so beach pass is required. We're going to work on the beach signage, and we are going to wait for the police to give us a reading on making the road one-way, but it's unlikely that'll happen this season. Okay, next
Hey,
is...
Monica, I have a question. If I can ask a question regarding pedestrian, what is the status of being able to leave a bike at the entrance to Great Island? Is there capacity for that right now? Or is there, I just don't recall if there's a place to put a bike at the entrance
No,
versus driving to Great Island.
right. I think there's
not.
there's a bike rack, and did we put another one?
We just have the one right now.
We have the one, but we're going to put another one over in that little pullout by the on Pear Tree, right? So how many bikes will that hold, do you think?
It's probably 8 that can fit in there now.
Okay. Yeah, so if you wanted to bike over, you would park, bring your lock and park there. Okay?
Got it. And any anecdotal sort of evidence as to how much is being used? Is it satisfactory? I understand you might be adding another one, or we might be adding another one, but
I've actually,
the fact that there's a bike rack there, I think is great.
yeah, I've actually never seen a bike park there. But, it's early in the
Interesting.
season, so, yeah.
Yep.
And the
Thank you.
the police's position is that we'll see an increase in traffic or an increase in volume on Great Island in the spring. But then seasonality in Darien, a lot of people aren't here in the months that, August. Do you find that at the park?
So there's a bit of a slowdown, but they're still reasonably
Right.
busy, especially on weekends. If you get those weekends with the high tides right in the middle of the day, they can still be quite busy.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the biggest trick we're going to have to monitor carefully, is whether we start having capacity issues with the parking at Pear Tree. And I think that's really, we're going to have to wait and see how that
Right.
goes. Historically, the parking there rarely fills up. We were monitoring it very closely for a few years around the pandemic and stuff, and I don't think even during the pandemic, I think we had 1 or 2 days where we were full at Weed for a few hours. Pear Tree never hit that even then, so historically, it's not been a problem, but we'll have to
Right.
see if that changes, if enough people are parking and walking over.
Does the boat club have a lot of events?
I'm not a member, so I'm not
In the summer, usually the
sure.
fall is their
Yeah.
big.
Their big events in the
Lobster
fall.
Bake is in September, but it's after Labor Day.
But whether they have parties during the I'm not aware that they do.
There's one summer picnic that they have.
Is
That's
there?
They've got a summer opening picnic and maybe one or two other events. It's not a lot.
All right, next is discuss Great Island rules and regulations. So I think we're all pretty happy with the positive feedback that we've gotten, right, from people visiting the island, and I think that's terrific. I hope people will continue to share their ideas for what they want to see there. We've had a number of questions come up with different things, including the pet policy, the bicycle policy, what are we going to do about fishing off the rocks? Are we going to allow kayaks to launch from there or to enter the island from there? Are we going to let fishermen walk in with their fishing poles and drop? Are we going to allow dinghies to tie up next to the fireboat? These are all, I think these are all great questions. And I think that I'm really excited that we're hiring a consultant who's going to help us. And I think one of the first things they're doing in the first phase is a reach out to our community and see what our community wants. And my own thinking is I don't like to do things twice. I don't like to unwind things. So my suggestion would be at this time that we keep the rules that we have on everything, and we wait for the consultant to do the reach out to the community and see what people want on each one of these, because I've heard both sides on, except for the fishing, on where we stand on all this. So, but I'd like to open it to discussion.
So how long do you think will restrict them to the paved road?
I think restricting them to the paved road until we have 23A done is,
That's pretty much next year then.
Yeah.
well, no, it'll be Christmas.
What's the thinking behind restricting them to stay on the loop paved roads because we're doing 23?
I think we just thought that restricting them to the paved roads
Yeah.
mostly it's just a safety thing, Jim. Where would you like people to go that they're not allowed to go now?
I guess it's just a lot of open space and grass that people can sit down on, take a break. It just seemed like to restrict them only to be on the actual paved roads. And, there are a few areas that I think we either do or should have cornered off that people can't go, but it just seems like there's a lot of areas where it just seemed a little bit awkward. Some people told me that you can only literally walk on the road and not kind of throw a baseball or sit down and relax or, have, on all the vast amounts of grass that we have.
Well, I guess if, there are certain areas that I think we are not set up as a town right now to have residents go on. I think that down by the beach, as attractive as it is, it has the rocks right next to it. I think that down by the other beach, there's some sensitive area in there. We have wildlife there. So again, another area that is not really ready for our residents.
But I think, I think by Pear Tree Point Beach, like on the southwest corner, they have all those rocks. I know we always get like a Christmas picture taken down there. Do we restrict people from?
The rules will say people shouldn't be on the rocks.
So we
but
have it posted that you can't be on the rocks? Or?
I'm not going to swear there's a sign there, but I believe the rules state that people aren't supposed to be on the rocks.
Okay, I didn't
Yeah.
know that. Got my Christmas picture taken on.
Well,
That'll be the
that would-
evidence in court.
yes.
Board of Finance Chairman,
Well,
ignoring the rules.
If we do have the rules. And I think the other one I've got a ton of questions on is just like the dog issue, right?
Dogs on leash. Yeah.
Yeah, to allow, every other park, every other piece of town property, I think we allow dogs on a leash. So I guess I think to me, that was one of the questions I had and I had been asked a lot.
Not
Was-
every, but most.
What?
Not every, but most.
Not
Dillard,
every
there's-
park, but most.
Dillard, there's no dogs. That was a request.
Oh, a dealer, you can't, oh, okay, that's right.
Oh, you've been doing that too?
Well, not there, but.
Yeah, and no
So I guess, yeah,
dogs.
that was one of the questions, just in terms of, is there any reason we can have them in other properties except for Diller and not there if they all remain on leash?
Right, and no dogs at Pear Tree now,
And no dogs at Pear Tree, ever.
yeah.
If I can add to that, those two questions, the why access to the road and why no dogs, is probably the two biggest questions that come in from the RTM.
Yeah, so again, the dog thing, it's, I had a dog, Topper, 16 years old, a little mini Australian Shepherd, a Dow. A lot of you that know me have met Topper. She passed away.
And I think there's that, especially the safety reason, the issues are, being on the surface, it just looks like a park, but folks aren't aware of it.
Okay.
I didn't get that.
I didn't catch all that, Mark. You broke up and I was talking over you.
Sure, well, yeah, do you want me to repeat?
Sure.
The access for dogs and access off of the paved streets are the two main things that folks raise with me from the RTM. And I think there's some valid safety issues that have been discussed here. And maybe just making sure that we communicate what those issues are. That's why some of these restrictions are in place until they can be addressed properly, either by the consultants or appropriate bodies.
Okay. Sorry, I think we got it, Mark. We're getting a little bit of feedback from you, but I think we have it.
Understood, thank you.
Yeah, I think we have it. What are other thoughts? My suggestion is, we created the rules and regulations for a reason. We all agreed upon them. Yes, we have a little delay with 23A, but we're going to, we're in phases, we're in stages, and it's all going to come together. Just have some patience.
But do you think we should be communicating, like, why, like, for example, like Mark brought up the dog issue, like, should we be communicating why we don't want to have dogs on?
I think that we should let the consultant reach out to the community, because you know what? There are actually a lot of people that don't want dogs there. So I don't want us to we already made a decision. I don't want us to start changing decisions. If we change the dog decision, then do we take another look at, if somebody brings a fishing pole in, can they go down to the shore? Do we take another look at all of our rules and regulations?
I think it could be helpful, because I mean, if people can't drive, I just think allowing people to use the island more, given we paid $85 for it, just seems like it's, if we can let people maybe step off the paved path and allow them to bring dogs like on a leash, right? It just seems like if there's not a reason to restrict it, it just seems like the default should be allow more use, safe use.
Yeah, but we have wildlife on the island, and we have people that actually are happy that there are no dogs there, Jim. You go down and ask people. I've done it. And I've visited some of these other parks. Some parks that I visited have animals and require them on leash. They're not on leash. I think we probably...
I'd say that's the biggest challenge we have, is even in parks like Woodland is our most prime example. Dogs must always be on leash, and we have a consistent problem with dogs off leash, and the commission does read. And I've gotten some really heartbreaking letters where I've had parents of young children saying, I won't bring my children to Woodland anymore because they've been toppled by dogs and they're afraid. And when we tell people dogs are off leash, yeah, we know.
But it feels like
so we have park users who feel they won't go there anymore. And we wrestled with this unless we have very strong enforcement.
But do you feel a concern that we're kind of preventing the people that follow the rules from using
valid,
it? Because there might be, I don't know if it's like 10% or 100% that break the rules, but kind of feels like we should allow people to.
I know, that's why this is so hard. We spent a
It
lot of
is
time
hard.
talking about it on the commission.
And I don't feel like we're taking something away from people, because people haven't been able to walk their dogs on Great Island for 120 years. So I just think, let's just wait a little bit. Let's let the consultant that we're going to spend a whole lot of money on help us make these decisions, so that we don't have to change our minds rewrite our rules and regulations and confuse our community more. That's my
Yeah.
thinking.
I guess the feedback I've gotten from people is it seems confusing that it's just one island, one park, that you can't walk your dog on. You know,
Well, there's also, on the island, there's a beach. You can't walk your dog on Pear Tree right now.
Yeah, and there's no dogs that weed from, well, there used to be no dogs that weed at all. We did open a winter dog program you're probably familiar with. Again, it's just one section of the beach, very clearly marked, and there's dogs all
so
over.
is that maybe an option we could do here on Great Island? We could say, no dogs on this beach area, but the other, check on the path and the other areas.
You won't get followed on, it just won't. I would like to tell you it would, but
Well,
it just won't.
Yeah, I think the other thing you need if you're going to change these rules is you also need an enforcement strategy. And to say, look, if we're going to now permit acts, whether it's dogs or fishing, dinghies, kayaks, kind of all that stuff, you need to come up with a plan that says, this is how we're going to enforce that, and here's what those consequences are going to be. And that's actually where I think consultants could provide a lot of perspective in terms of how that's handled in other environmentally sensitive areas or in places that have a unique feature. Because one of the things about Great Island is that the wildlife there is trapped, unless it's a bird. And there's really only kind of one entrance there, so whether it's deer or anything else, if they're in town, they can scamper off and disappear, and dogs won't be able to chase them. On Great Island, they're captive. And so it's just, I think the wildlife profile there is unique. And again, I'm not saying we can't have dogs there, but my view is that I don't think we can just snap our fingers and say this is all now permitted without actually having gone through to say, here's specifically what we're going to allow, or what we're going to continue to disallow, and here's what we're going to do to enforce this. The other thing is I don't want to see this turn into a police state, right? You can't have officers down there, shaking batons at somebody who doesn't put their dog on a leash. I mean, we kind of don't want that feel either. And so, in my view, I kind of with Lori, you talk about kind of dogs off leash. It is an endemic issue. Is it terrible? Maybe it's not terrible, but we have a rule, and there are difficulties with the enforcement of that. I think we just need to take a step back and say, what's our posture on enforcement as well as what the rules are? And to Monica's point, it's not just dogs. We ought to take into account all the things we've been requested to do, and there's a dozen of them in terms of things you could do on Great Island. Let's just take a look.
Well, maybe maybe that's not a Great Island question. Maybe that's the town-wide question about.
Well, I think that the enforcement perspective could actually be something that feeds into Parks and Rec.
How do you guys enforce it there? Like Cherry Lawn, for example, or other?
There is an animal control officer who works for the police department who should be enforcing.
Yeah, the
And
reality
I'm just
is-
going to leave it at that.
The
We don't
reality
have
is-
staff at the parks unless Sandy or the guys happen to be out there and they might say something to me. I think I and other commissioners from time to time might try to gently remind a citizen that their dog shouldn't be there, should be on leash, and have taken some fairly severe tongue lashing from time to time. People can get very nasty and rude. They don't say, oh, I'm so sorry. It's tough.
We don't have a great enforcement answer. That's kind of why I brought it up. I mean, to Lori's point, I mean, if I'm out there, what am I going to say? I mean, I don't know how you would handle that.
Yeah, I mean, that's so different, I think, than all the parks that allow
Yeah.
dogs, it seems like.
But it's hard, and then you don't really want volunteers. And Pam Gary, when she was here, and I met with the police on numerous occasions to talk about asking for stepped-up enforcement. They really encourage, someone like me, myself or other commission members as volunteers, really not to engage the public. They're like, just, you can call the police line, and I know other people will do that, the non-emergency, and if the police can get over there, they will, but, maybe they can or maybe they can't, or, I have, the enforcement officer's cell phone number, but, as sort of a volunteer, and if I'm down at the beach, I mean, a lot of times I'm down there, I call working, but other times I'm down there because I'm just down there trying to enjoy the beach, and I don't really, I'm sitting there going, oh, or I'm at a park, and you're like, oh, there's somebody. It's a hard role for a volunteer to get into, that now all of a sudden you're having to call out your fellow citizens. So it really has to be professional enforcement. And then people have to know that there's a chance that they're going to be ticketed and called to task, is really what it comes down to. But then that gets to cost. You know, if at the beaches, when the security people are there, if they see somebody, you know, in season, if they see people trying to walk in with dogs, then they can turn them away. But I've even seen times at Weed where the security guard's there and people, they come in off of, you know, that side entrance from the bay or the back island from Brush Island, which they shouldn't be, and come in with their dogs. I've seen that happen as well. So we wish we could come up with a better solution to keep everybody
So is the
happy.
idea to not change any of the, like not vote on or change any of the rules, just wait until we hire the consultant and see what they say about the rules?
That'd be my suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, for people who want the dog rules relaxed, I mean, that seems to be the rule that everybody wants relaxed. I mean, all the others are minor in comparison with that. I think that our town experience with dogs off leash at our other parks, the unique topography off Great Island, the propensity to let a dog run on a 60-acre park with all kinds of interesting things for that dog to explore, without the town having an education process, an enforcement plan, a few consequences here and there to just reinforce the rules, if we decide to do that, right? We just haven't kind of thought through all that. And I think Monica's point about relaxing that rule, and then if it gets out of hand, and we've got 300 people on the island at once with dogs running around, I mean, I don't know how you pull this back and then say, okay, we're now taking the tape off that rule, we're now reinforcing that rule. And in other words, we start spending all our time trying to adjudicate this rule and decide how we're going to enforce and all that, instead of saying, what are we going to do with these consultants to try to turn the island into what we want? So it's disappointing to have this continued delay, but I do think with some help from these consultants that we could get to a good answer that covers the spectrum from rule to education to enforcement to reconsideration. So I'm okay with this, with waiting.
With waiting. Yeah, and I think the consultant will take a look at if dogs are allowed on the island, where specifically are they? You know, the bridle path area is a pretty sensitive area. The beach is obviously a sensitive area. So that's, I think, where we let the experts give us some guidance.
And we want to continue to not allow people to step off the path, like only staying on the paved.
I prefer to think of it as, I hope that people enjoy walking on the path when they're going through Great Island. Yeah. I think, Jim, I mean, I'm not sure if there's a specific area that you want us to, you know, I don't know, set up some chairs or something, but I think, you know, we have agreed to a set of rules. I'm okay with keeping the rules as they are. If you want a specific area cordoned off for people to stop and, you know, have a sit down, I guess we could look into getting benches or something.
No, but my suggestion, if we were going to revisit the rules, would to do it in the opposite. You'd say people can step off the path, but if there are areas that they should not be on, you would just sort of mark those areas and not have them on.
Well, I think we're asking them to stay on the path, and we've marked the areas off that you know, you could get sidetracked and go down, so.
Okay.
Jeff, Dan, perspectives?
I think it was beat up pretty well.
Discussed.
Mark?
No, Mark spoke. Yeah.
Did he? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Jeff, anything?
No, I agree. I think, you know, we gave a lot of thought to the rules. It certainly can be revisited in the context of, you know, a little more definition of what our planned objectives are, and change them and perhaps change them again, I don't think would necessarily be the right course.
Okay.
Although, at the mansion house, that hill on that side that overlooks, you know, the lighthouse and everything else, if there was a fence rope or something that said you're allowed on this side, and like you said, benches or something like that, that would be a pretty spectacular place to be able to sit down after you walk around a little bit before you head back off the island or something like that.
Yeah, I think like areas like that, to find a place where somebody can sit down, have a sandwich, like relax a little bit, and look, probably the best view on the entire island, like things like that, I think might make sense to think about, until we get the whole thing done, before we get the whole thing done.
You know, when I was looking through the proposals, I noticed that that a few of these firms were looking for easy delivery items, right? So something that, isn't going to take 3 to 5 years to roll out. And I think something like a Vista or walking trails, things like that, that's what I envision them focusing on. So we would ask them, put that front and center. Get us some seating. I think the other thing is in the second task, so phase 2, so there's phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 2 takes a look at bicycles and where we should, bike paths, bike store, bike racks, whatever they're called. Maybe we ask them to take a look at that a little bit sooner. I know people want to, that's another one that people have asked about, getting their bikes out there. So, okay, so if we've deliberated that enough, are we in agreement that we keep the rules as they are at this point until our consultant can get community input? Everybody agree?
Oh, is a vote?
Yes, let's have a vote on it.
I just, one thing though, on the access from the dock, because I stay on the path, I haven't been down, do we feel that it's marked well enough from the water? Because I heard there's already been boats out in the cove.
Right.
It's nice days. Do we feel that that dock is adequately marked and we have the mechanisms in place to prevent access from the water now that boating season has started? And we
Yeah.
also have to think about people either stay very late at Ziegler's. It can be a very big party scene at night. People stay overnight, and we really have to think about,
No.
after dark. So I don't know what the mechanism is, but we do need to think about access from the water now
Okay.
that boating season has started.
Let me wrap up the last one before I forget. So may I have a motion to, that the current rules and regulations remain in place until the consultants have completed their outreach and gathered input from the community pertaining to these rules. This will help ensure that any modification to the rules are well-informed and reflective of community feedback. May I have a motion?
So
Jeff
moved.
moves. Second?
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Yes. Mark?
Bruce, are you still with us?
Bruce is left.
Bruce left? Jim, you good?
I would like to revisit sooner rather than later, but, so I would vote no.
Vote no? Okay.
Agreed. I agree with that.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mark, so you're a yes or you're a wait? You're a no?
I'm a yes, but I'd like it to be reconsidered at its earliest convenience.
Okay. Yes, I agree. Okay. So that's
Well, I'll vote yes, with the caveat, I'd like it to be reconsidered at the earliest possible time.
okay.
Tomorrow.
I think it should be a thoughtful process.
Okay,
don't-
I agree.
And I'd like it to be a consistent process throughout town, so.
Okay. Okay, that throws a little wrinkle in, but, okay. With that additional wording, all in favor? Okay, opposed, abstaining? Okay, unanimous, all right. Okay, so you're,
After the
yes. Tony, I think we do need to take another look at the dock. I'm not sure if we can put, coming from the road onto the dock, we used to have some sort of a rope or a gate, or not a
We have
rope,
two
but a
chains
chain.
right now.
Yeah, do
There's a
we?
chain going, there's a chain going from the paved, from the concrete, down to the dock where the police is, there's a small chain there. But technically, people can't even go onto that, because you're supposed to only stay in the paved area, not like the cemented dock area.
No, but I'm talking about people who don't follow the rules.
So we did have a lot of people last year that would actually come up onto the dock, right? And so what we did is we took the ladder away. So it makes it a little bit harder to get up on the dock. But do you think some additional signage there?
Well, we're gonna have to talk about some options, because whether we want people to do that or not, because it's gonna happen if we don't put up fences or
Right.
or something.
It is going to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna
There are,
happen, because we had so much of it last year, and now that everybody knows.
Right.
You know, and I have come up with some options, but it's really the question of, is this allowed or not?
No, we're not changing the rules, so no access from the water.
Right, so I think we have to do something more than signs,
Right.
I believe.
What would that entail?
Maybe some fencing, you know, we'll come
We'll
up with
come
some
up with something?
options. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, something electric.
Have we thought about the high tide rule, like how that affects sort of the south side of the island?
Say it again?
Like the high tide rule?
Yeah, I just haven't seen anything.
I don't have them in front of me. Do the rules specifically prohibit climbing on the rocks? Did we put that in there? I don't feel like we did.
What was the question?
Do the rules specifically state no climbing on the rocks? I don't feel like we put that.
Fair Trade Point or?
Great Island.
If it's just on the path, you're not supposed to be up.
Yeah, I know, but again, I'm thinking about people who are coming in from the water and,
No, we have no
There's-
access from the water, so, and that's on here.
okay.
So-
So that's, probably, you're gonna have a lot of non-residents who are spending the day, and people do swim over to the rocks, and definitely, once we owned it last summer, it was more noticeable that people are like, oh, the town owns this now, and people are swimming from their boats and climbing up onto the rocks and hanging out and doing stuff, so. Again, it's a tricky one to enforce, so whether the police just have to be monitoring for that, but again, people aren't necessarily gonna have a little QR code or be looking up. You know, it's not gonna be as much in their face, if you know what I'm
Okay.
saying, because they're coming off of their boats, and people come from all over to Ziegler's, from Long Island, from, just from all
So I
over.
think Jim's point about sort of the thoughtful consideration of all this, it may not have the
Yeah.
speed that we want in terms of resolving the dog access issue, but it's just stuff like this, where it kind of comes up and you're not really sure, well,
I know,
what
it's
is that
tricky,
rule
yeah.
supposed to be?
Yep.
How are we going to enforce that? Do we care? I mean, I don't know, but if we can go through that process, at least we will have considered all those contingencies, we can say go,
Yep.
and we're satisfied with those rules and don't have to Jeff's point, go back and revisit them.
One rule, or maybe this isn't a rule, this is just a statistic here, but does it make sense to have a porta potty on there, given that people are walking all the way from Weed Beach or from the churches down, around, and back? I mean, because in terms of people following the rules, I mean, I understand there's not one on there, but
Well, there is in the rules, it does say in bold that there are no, restroom facilities.
But your question is, if
Yeah.
we're going to have one, it's probably
Question
not
mark.
one, it's probably a whole bank of them. I mean, well, I mean,
yeah, I don't know that you need a whole bank. I guess the question is, should you have something in case someone needs to go?
We'll take that under consideration.
I think the summer's gonna be a whole lot busier than we've seen so far there. And so I think we need to deal with it probably before the consultant has time to poll the community about what they want, what the community wants and what they don't want. So, I don't know, just a good community thing probably. I'm not saying next week, but when traffic picks up there. Don't need to consider it for this meeting.
Okay. All right, moving on. Great Island logo. So this is just something, we don't have to decide this tonight, but we did have, somebody designed a T-shirt, looking at Tony over there. And Marley mentioned a logo, so I'm not sure if this is something I think this is a fun thing, and I'm asking for you just to start thinking about it, what we can do on this. Should this be I think it should be a community event, so maybe some sort of.
I think it should be a contest.
A contest.
I think we have a
Yeah.
lot of talented people in Darien, the high school kids.
Yep.
I think we should petition everyone to have a contest for best design for the logo.
Isn't that what we did for the bicentennial?
Mhm.
A
I
dog
like
on a
that.
leash, kind of make it educational.
What was that?
A dog on a
With a red
leash.
circle.
Certainly should be included.
Too soon.
Oh, sorry. So we've already covered that topic.
I think it's a great idea to open up to the community.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so who's not here? Bruce isn't here. Okay, so we'll let Bruce run this. Okay? No, I'm actually gonna work on like a little bit of the history with Bruce, but we're gonna wait and see what the consultants come up with that, so he's got a little bit of free time. So whoever wants to help him,
With my free time.
I'll help Bruce with the logo.
yeah, okay? I think a
With
contest.
the logo or with the contest?
So with the contest,
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
contest around the logo.
Yeah.
Marley would be able to help with that
Yeah,
too, I bet,
Marley,
in terms of
absolutely.
publicizing it.
She'd be
and-
happy to do that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Okay.
Go on the
Um,
website too, right?
Yep. My next is talk a little bit about public and media interactions. So I think it's important as we move forward that any official kind of notifications to the press should go through me or through John as our official spokespeople. So I would ask you to contact me before. And I think, I also just want us to be really careful right now. People are going to start thinking about what we can do out there, right? And I think it's important that we continue to communicate with our residents, that we will be looking for their input, and we haven't made any decisions on anything. And people will pay a lot of attention to whatever you say as committee members if you float an idea. So I'm going to ask people to hang on to those ideas because you're residents and we want, the consultants are going to want to hear that. But just be aware that as a committee member, your ideas carry more weight than just the average person.
Do we have like a formal way that we can start logging like ideas we're getting from the community?
I think that's one of the first things this consultant is going to do. I have like a couple of things that are really important for me personally that the consultant takes care of, and the community engagement is a huge piece of it. So we're going to be looking for them to, people do send in now, they send in ideas to Great Island, Darien-CT.gov, and we collect those, but
Are you responding to some of those questions?
yes, I respond to all of them.
Should you copy us on the response? Because
I-
we're getting
Yeah, I can.
the
sure.
question.
Yeah, if you want me to, sure. didn't-
I saw something like somebody said, go look at this park on Long Island or something, right?
I did.
And I didn't see any response to it or anything.
Oh, no, I did go look at that. That was the equestrian park that has no animals also. I thought, they thought it was very similar to the stable setup, but I learned while I was out there that it's a beautiful park, but it's like 1,600 acres. So you want to, first of all, dedicate a little bit of time to visiting there. But yes, I do respond to all those. I just didn't copy everybody, but I'm happy to if you want me
And
to.
I was assuming you were responding.
Yeah.
But-
Or John sometimes jumps in. Okay. Next is review and approve the special minutes from March 20th. Any edits, corrections? No? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the special meeting minutes of March 20th? Okay, Dan moves, Jeff seconds, all in favor? Mark, you still
Yes.
there? Yes, okay, unanimous.
Yes.
All right, thank you. That's the last item on the agenda, except for adjourning. So, may I have a motion to adjourn? Jim moves, Lori seconds, all in favor? Unanimous. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.